So he goes into the bar, right? Good joke. Goes into the bar and he says to the bartender, he says, "Bartender, I'd like to buy some beer." So the bartender says, "You have some money?" He says, "Yeah, I have some money." Gives him money. Bartender takes the bottle, he starts walking out, and the bartender says to him, "Hey, where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to share it with my friend out in the alleyway." He said, "Yeah, but you have nowhere to put it." So he says, thinks for a second, and he says, "Okay, put it in my hat." So the bartender says, "Okay," and he dumps it in his hat. He's about to leave. The bartender says, "Hey, I have a problem. There's still a little bit left in the bottle. Where should I put that?" So he thinks. He says, "Oh, don't worry. Put it right here." Right. Okay. So he walks out of the bar and he goes back and his friend sees him and his friend says, "That's all the beer you get for that amount of money?" He says, "No, don't worry. I have more right here." It's a good one. What is the problem with this story? Among other things, okay, right? What is the problem? Where is the error in judgment over here? What was the problem? The problem is, if he wouldn't have been drunk, he wouldn't have been asking for his hat. Fine. But if he would have realized, see this part over here? If you just go ahead and poke it in, you have more room. There's more space. Which means that this person had no place to put what he was being given. Right? I can only give you as much as you are able to accept. Right? If you don't have some place to put something, I can't give it to you. You're not going to be able to accept it. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Mitzrayim and He split the Yam Suf, we couldn't get the Torah right away. We weren't ready. There was no place for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to put it. We weren't at that point. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us you have to wait till Ma'at Har Sinai. You have to have intense Prisha of 3 days separation for 3 days, so you can hear the voice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then to get the Torah, you have to wait. There's a time you have to work on yourself. You know, it's very interesting Maharal. I came across this, and it fits in right over here. The Maharal in the first Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, why does it say Moshe kibel Torah miSinai u'misara liYoshua? Moshe accepted Torah from Sinai and he gave it over to Yeshua. Why doesn't it say Moshe accepted Torah from Sinai or from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? It says also what's Sinai have to do? And why doesn't it say and Yeshua accepted it from Moshe? Why does it say Kibel and what's the difference between Kabbalah and Masera? Accepting and giving over. So he says beautifully, he says that somebody who gives over, a Meiser, can give over everything to the other person. I have an intense amount of knowledge and I can give you over everything. But you as a Makabal are limited. You are limited to what you are able to accept. This very point. He says Moshe, HaKadosh Baruch Hu can give over the entire Torah, right? He's the only one who can give over the entire Torah. Moshe can only accept Ki HaMakabal Hu Makabal Fi Koichai. He can only accept to his ability. So that's why it says Moshe was Makabal the Torah. He was Makabal it from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then when it goes to Yeshua, it wants to tell you the point that Moshe gave over everything, all of his knowledge to Yeshua. U'misar Yeshua. All that knowledge that he received, everything, there was no chisaron. He gave it over entirely to Yeshua. Now Yeshua was a Makabal. He was only able to accept what he was able to accept, what he was ready for. So you see this Indian of a Makabal and somebody who gives over. Somebody who gives over can give over everything that's in his ability, but somebody who's a Makabal, only what you are ready to accept I can give you. Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah. That means the Derech Eretz that I have, the type of person that I'm going to make myself, is a requirement, that's commensurate to how much Torah I'm going to be able to receive. Derech Eretz is Kodim for Torah. If you don't have the proper Derech Eretz, and it doesn't matter how smart you are. It's very interesting how Torah is a Chachma, but it's not like any other Chachma. If you don't have these midos, it makes a difference to me if I'm noisy ba'oil im chaverai to accept Torah? I'm a genius. I can learn just as well as better than anybody else. How is it possible that a requirement is noisy ba'oil im chaverai? You won't find one of the 48 kinyanim requirements of how smart you are. It's not a requirement to receive Torah. It's a requirement in how you act with different people. It's sleeping less, sameach bechelko, being happy with what you have. That's what's going to determine my ability to accept Torah? Yeah, because Torah is not like any other chachma. Torah is only given to somebody who fixes himself up, who makes himself ready to accept the Torah. It's very interesting. The 26th kinyan is hamakir es mekaymai. That means somebody who recognizes his place. What does it mean he recognizes his place? So the Maharal explains like this: Perish. This means sheyodea erech ma'alaso v'chasrano. You know your high points and you know your weaknesses. Why is that? Why do I have to know my attributes and my weaknesses? What's the difference? He says 2 reasons. First of all, he says, this is the second reason I'll tell you first. He says, if a person thinks he's better than he actually is, and he doesn't know he thinks, I don't have a problem with Gaiva. It's not a problem by me. You'll never be able to fix yourself up. If you can't fix yourself up, you can't get the Torah. You'll never think there's anything wrong with you. But he says there's an even more fundamental problem over here. He says like this: if a person is toa ba'atma, that means you make a mistake with yourself. You don't know what you're worth and what your chesronis are. He says ve'ein ha'Torah re'uya liyos b'makom ta'us. Torah is not fitting to be in a place of mistake. Why? Because Torah is Torah's emes. Torah is truth. Torah is truth. Truth cannot exist in a place of mistake. Right? Can't be. So if a person has a mistake about himself, he's living a life of mistake. I think I'm better than I actually am. You can't have Torah, which is truth, reside within you. Only through being misak in your midas, only through fixing up your ways, that's how a person can accept Torah. Look, Moshe Rabbeinu, why was he Zaycha to Torah? He was the Anav Mikal Adam. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu was the Anav, the biggest Anav in the world. Why? Because the Baal Gaiva, somebody who's so full of himself, can't accept anything else. He's so high on himself. Somebody who's an Anav, who's a Shafel, who doesn't, even though Moshe was the greatest of all people, but he was the Anav Mikal Adam by the same token. That's why he merited receiving the maximum amount of Torah possible.
What's Anav?
Anav is a humble person. He was the most humble of people. And he wasn't, and he had every right to show authority, and when he had to, he did. But it was only when he had to, right? But he was an Anav. Torah is Nimshal Lamayim. Why is Torah compared to water? Because water flows down. Torah is only found in somebody who lowers himself, who also goes down. That's why Torah is found by somebody who is a humble person. Look at Rabbi Akiva. Started out when he was 40 years old. Started from Aleph, started from nothing. And within 12 years he had surpassed great Tanaim who were learning their entire lives. That's somebody who puts in the honest amount of time to work on himself, to learn Torah with a great desire, with a great teshuka, a great ratzon, a great will. I want it, and I want to do anything I can. I want to fix myself, work on myself. And he surpasses everybody. How is that? Person works on himself, then he can work on learning Torah. He can accept the Torah. So the first thing is, before we get to Yontif, before we get to Shavuos in a couple of weeks, we have to prepare ourselves. We can't just walk into Shavuos. We don't just walk into any Yontif. We can't just walk into a Yom Kippur. You have to go through a whole Elul first. You got to prepare yourself. You got to start Tshuva early. Same things with Matan Torah. You can't just walk into Matan Torah and expect to stay up the whole night, and that'll be very fulfilling for me. Right? I'll fall asleep through davening, and it'll be very fulfilling for me. I got the Torah this year, right? Doesn't happen. A person has to prepare himself throughout the entire Yemei HaSfira. Through how? Through learning Pirkei Avos. Through going through Tikkun Amidas. Even if you can't go through all 48. Pick one thing that a person thinks he can excel in. We all excel in our Midas, Tovas. But let's say there's something we can do better. Person should think this is my preparation for Chag Shavuos. That's before Shavuos. But now, when we all go through a Yontif of Shavuos, the question is, how do we take it with us? How does a person, we said you don't just commemorate. Can you just pass these out, please? Thanks. To you. Thanks. We can't just, we're not just celebrating what happened. We're not commemorating what happened, but we're going through it. We're making a Kabbalah Torah. So how do we keep it with us throughout the entire year, and not just keep it one night, 2 nights, and that's it? So I'd like to say over a thought that I heard from my Rabbeim, and I'd like to start off with a disclaimer. And the disclaimer is that we're going to be talking about the Dor Deah, the Dor HaMidbar, right? Intense, holy people that we have no ideas, right? They accepted the Torah, they drank water from a rock, the Be'er Shel Miriam, they ate man that fell from Shemayim every day, right? People who make a bracha, Hamotzi Lechem Min HaShemayim. Can you imagine every day before you sit down to eat, you make such a bracha, you make such a bracha, right? They had the Yam Suf split for them, they heard God Himself speak, and they had Tchias HaMeisim done twice to themselves. Things which don't happen to people on a daily basis, we could say, right? These are unbelievable holy people. However, so Chazal tells us sometimes that there was a chet, there was an avera, there was a sin. We have to realize that we don't mean what we can't look at them and say, put our own personal, agendas into what they were. They were who they were. We can only say what Chazal say for us to learn out. That's a disclaimer. So So if you look at on the first sheet, number 1, in Parshas Ba'aloi style, you'll notice something right before Pasuk Lamed Hey and after Pasuk Lamed Vav. There are 2 backwards nuns. What are they doing before this Pasuk of Vayibin Sa Aaron and after Uvnucha Yomar? So if you look at the bottom there's a number 2 for Rashi. Rashi explains what these nuns are doing here. So Rashi says like this: Vayibin Sa Aaron. There's a siman beforehand and a siman after this whole parsha. Laimar, this teaches us she'ein zeh makomo. This parsha of Vayibin Sa Aaron and Uvnucha Yomar does not belong here. It actually belongs in Parshas Bamidbar with the Degalim, with the flag. So v'lama nichtav kan. So why was it written over here? K'dei lahafsik bein puranus lepuranus, to separate between 2 not such great episodes of Klal Yisrael's history. Now, to explain this a little more, if you please turn over to the back, number 3. Rashi is actually quoting a Gemara in Masechus Shabbos. And on the top paragraph, you see the second line from the bottom. It starts like this: Tan Rabbanan, Vayibin Sa Aaron, Vayomer Moshe. Parsha Zu, this parsha, Asala Hakadosh Baruch Hu Simanios Milamala Ulamata. Hakadosh Baruch Hu made a siman, a marker, beforehand and afterwards. Loimar, this teaches us she'ein zeh makomo. This is not the proper place for it. Now, if you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, we're going to see the reason for this. The Tanya Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Amar. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, "Asida parsha zu shete'akar mikan v'tichtav b'makomo." This parsha, which doesn't belong here, in the future is going to be uprooted and put back in its proper place. So he asks the question: V'lama kasva kan? So why is it written over here? Kedei lahafsik bein puranus rishon u'puranus shniya, to separate between the first bad episode and the second one. Hey, anybody give me a good translation for puranus? Retribution?
Yeah, that's usually what it is, but...
Yeah. I was like, not a good thing, right? It's a bad episode. It's not a great episode. I think it would be the best way to translate it. It's not just a great episode, but we'll call it Puranus. Puranus Rishon and Puranus Shniya. So the Gemara asks, Puranus Shniya Maihi. What was the second bad episode, the second Puranus? Says, the pasuk says right after, Vayhi ha'am ki mis'anunim rabbeinu Hashem. The nation started complaining, and it wasn't good, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent an Eish, a fire, and it swallowed them up. So they started complaining. They wanted to rebel against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, that was the second bad episode. Rishayna, what was the first one? Pranis Rishayna, says the Gemara, Vayisu me Har Hashem. They went away from Har Hashem, from Har Sinai. V'amar Reb Chama b'Reb Chanina. Reb Chama says, Shesaru me Acharei Hashem. They turned away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What is this episode? So let's look at Rashi. Rashi on the side right there says, Me'afrei Hashem, away from Hashem, Besoch Gimel Yamim L'masam. 3 days after they had left Har Sinai, Hisavu Safsuf Taiva L'Yisraim Ala Basar, the Safsuf, the Erev Rab, they started complaining. They wanted meat. They wanted real food. They didn't like the mud anymore. Why did they do this? They limrud b'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rashi tells us they wanted to rebel against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Very interesting. 3 days after you leave Har Sinai already you're rebelling against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But take a look, there's an unbelievable Tosfos right over here. Tosfos says like this: Paranis Rishona Vayisu v'Amar Chanina Shesar Me'achrei Hashem. Perish B'Kuntras, Rashi explains Shemei Oz, from the time that they left, after they left Har Sinai, Hischilu Lishol Basar, then they wanted meat already. V'Omari, the Re says they ain't early. I don't agree with Rashi's pshat. Because, could be, he doesn't hold, because that's not a problem of the leaving of Har Sinai. That's what happened after they left Har Sinai, right? We want to know what the bad episode, the leaving, was. So he explains like this: Ela Puranus Rishona Kedamar b'Medrash. He brings a medrash which says like this: Vayisu shenasu me Har Sinai. No, it means Vayisu me Har Sinai. They traveled. Means they went away from Har Sinai. Derech Shloshes Yamim Ketinuk Hayotzi me Beis HaSefer. Like a child who runs out of school. Who runs out right away, right? And somebody wants to explain to me, the kid so wants to get out of school, you could pick him up by his, off the ground, and his legs are still going. He just wants to get out. He doesn't want to be here anymore. So it says, they ran away from Har Sinai. They were running away. They went 3 days. They didn't stop. They kept on going 3 days worth till they stopped. Why? They learned too much Torah at Har Sinai. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, Nismach Paranis LaParanis Lav. We're not going to put the two together. We're going to put in the middle of these two Paranias Vayiven Saran, which means like this. The second Peronius, everybody agrees, is the Asafsuf, that they wanted basa, they wanted meat, they were finished with the man, right? The first one is the Machlokes, Rashi and Tosfos. Rashi holds 3 days after they left Har Sinai, they started to complain. The Re says no. The problem is not what happened after they left. The Re says, you know what the problem was? The problem was in how they left Har Sinai. The attitude of leaving Har Sinai. They had just gone through a Matan Torah. They had just gone through a Ma'amad Har Sinai. They had just learned Kula Tarakula from Moshe, who heard it from HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. And what was the attitude? 613 is way too... Yeah, that's it. We've had it up to here. Let's get out of here. Who knows what else we're going to get? So Ketina Kabarech Mibeis HaSefer. They tore out of there 3 days, not looking back. They just left. The attitude of how they left Har Sinai was wrong. That was the problem. It wasn't the problem of what happened afterwards. It was the actual leaving of Har Sinai. Now, the question could be, how did the Re see this in the Pasuk? Right? Rashi read the Pasuk Vayisu and he didn't think that was the problem. So how did the Re see this in the Pasuk? So if you turn back over to number 4, there's another similar Pasuk that we find somewhere else in the Torah. In Parashat B'Shalach, the Pasuk of Beis says like this: Vayasa Moshe es Yisrael miyam suf, vayetzu el midbar shur, vayelchu shloshis yamim midbar v'lo matzu mayim. The 3 days they didn't find water. What is this word Vayasa? So look at Rashi, please. Rashi says like this: Vayasa Moshe, Hision bal karcham. He forced them away from the Yam Suf. Why? Why do you have to force them away? She'itru Mitzrayim esuseim betachshitei zal v'chesed v'avonim tovos. The Egyptians adorned their chariots with lots of gold and silver and great stones, jewels, gems. What happened? The Yam spit the Egyptians back up on the shore. And the Jews found all these riches. And Rashi says, Gedoylo haisa bizas hayami bizas Mitzrayim. Right? We know when they left Mitzrayim, it says, Vayinatlu es Mitzrayim. They emptied out Mitzrayim. There was nothing left. And as much as they took out, there was more at Kriyas Yamsuf. So they didn't want to leave. So what happened? Lefika Rashi ends off. He had to schlep them away from the Yamsuf, which means like this. My Rashiva, Moshe Mazman points out. He says, when it came to Matan Torah, the whole Ma'amad Har Sinai, the giving of the Luchos, the giving of the Torah, hearing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that whole experience, they ran away. We don't want any more. But when it came time for the money to take the jewels, did they run away? Let's go to Har Sinai to get the Torah. No, they were too caught up with the money. Moshe had to schlep them away. Did Moshe have to schlep them away from Har Sinai? No, they went on their own. It could be possible from this juxtaposition of these two psukim that the Re saw this. That over by Har Sinai it says Vayisu, they went. When it came time for the money, Vayasa, he had to schlep them away. So this is where the Re saw. If it doesn't say Vayasa in regards to Har Sinai, if it doesn't say that he schlepped them away, again, I have to read it. We're talking about the Dordei again, and the Chet is only on their level. But if it doesn't say that Moshe Vayasa, if it would have said Vayasa Moshe Sa'amei Har Hashem, that would have meant that they loved the learning so much, they had got such gratification from it that they didn't want to leave. And Moshe said, no, we have to go to Eretz Yisrael now. Next step of the journey, let's go into Eretz Yisrael. It doesn't say that. Vayisu. The question is, how does something like this happen? How does this happen? You go through a whole Ma'amad Har Sinai, all these experiences, and that's your attitude? Just right away, you run away? How does that happen? How could that happen? The answer, I think, let's not go too far back to them. Let's think about ourselves. We sometimes go to drushas, and we sometimes have moments of inspiration. We go through many experiences in our life, and we get inspired. And you go hear a shir about tefillah, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to go, learn about tefillah. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You learn about tikkun hamid, I'm going to go fix myself up. I'm going to Lashon Hara is out, right? And what invariably happens, we fall back in, previous experiences and whatever, falls by the wayside. How does that happen? Teretz is because it meant something then, but we didn't do something to internalize it into ourselves and make it a part of ourselves, and then do some physical action to take it with us. That it shouldn't just fall by the wayside. We just said, yeah, Lashon Hara is going to be out. Did you ever figure out how to get rid of Lashon Hara? Yeah, I'm going to open up the Sefer Chavetz Chaim and learn the halachas. If you don't get bludgeoned by the first week of your learning, you're not doing a good job. There's so many intricate halachas. The person didn't think of practical ways to make it a part of himself and to go forward. Same thing was over there. They went through Ma'amad Har Sinai. But they didn't internalize it into the very fiber of their beings, possibly. And that's what led to them totally just leaving it by the wayside and running away. So again, we're going to prepare ourselves to come to Shavuos. We're going to try and work on our midas, try and make ourselves, big enough to accept all of Torah, because we want it, we really do. But how do we keep it after Yom Tov? How can we do? What's a practical way for everybody here sitting in this room to be able to take the Torah with them after Yom Tov? We don't just want it to be a 1 or 2 night thing and that's it. So I once heard a very great eitzah from one of my Rebbeim, and I think the basis for this comes from Mishari Tshuva, Rabbeinu Yonah. Take a look at the second page. He says like this, right at the top. When a person will hear musar, words of rebuke from the Chachamim, who give him this rebuke, he should listen, he should humble himself, and he should do tshuva. He should be mekabel, he should accept on his heart all the words of the rebuke. He should not, don't leave anything out. Now when a person is mekabel, he accepts upon himself, he says, look at this. Look at the lashon of Rabbeinu Yonah. This man, berega katon, in a small instance, small moment, yata me'afela la'or gadol. He's gone out from tremendous darkness to a great light. Why is that? Ki es, because the time asher yazin v'yaskes, that the time that he listens, ulavavo yavin, and his heart understands, v'shav v'kabel b'yayim shamay, that important word v'kabel, he accepts to listen, divra mochiach, and he's going to do it. He says v'yikayim alav, and he accepts upon himself to do it. He should go to the next underline. Also biyada hatshuva v'nepach li'ish acher. The moment a person is mekabel on himself, he accepts upon himself. I just heard a shmooze about lashon hara, and I'm mekabel. I want to do it. I'm mekabel on myself. Emes, I want to do it. He says at that moment the tshuva works, and you are a different person at that point. You are ki'ilu, a person who has done full tshuva because you were mekabel. And he continues. When a person at that moment, when a person accepts upon himself and he thinks about it and he accepts upon himself and he resolves to actually, do it, to do the tshuva, to fix whatever he wanted to fix up, he gets the reward for all the mitzvahs and the mussar that he just heard. You see what you can do in a fleeting moment, in a simple moment, in such a short time? You just got a tremendous chus for yourself. You just were tzidek nafshay. You're a tzaddik now. On that instant that you decided, I want to do it, I'm bekabel on myself. Skip please the next paragraph. It starts va'amru Rabba Seir va'amru. He quotes the Avos of Nassim. We have this in Pirkei Avos. He says, there's a mission that says, Kol shemaisav mirubim mechachmasai chachmasim iskayames. A person whose deeds are more than his knowledge will last. Now the question is, I don't understand something. If I know, let's say I only know about 58 mitzvahs, can I do 70 of them knowingly? If my chachma only knows a certain amount, how could my meisim be more than I know? I can only do what I know. So how could the Mishnah tell me anybody whose deeds are more than what he knows, his knowledge will last? What do you mean? I only know a certain amount. I can't do more knowingly than my knowledge allows me. So Rabbeinu Yonah says an unbelievable thing, and he says, you know what? Shenamar, the Mishnah quotes a pasuk, Nasav and Ishma, and he's going to explain it. Be'er adavar. You know what the explanation is like this. Ka'ish asher, again, kibel al nafshay belev neman, a person who is, as we say, errant. He really means it, right? Really means it. He's mekabel on himself. Lishmar v'las al pia Torah asher yaruhu v'al pia mishpat asher yamru la yashav al mishpat. He really wants to. He's mekabel on himself. I really want to be mekayim the Torah. I really want to do the mitzvahs. It's hard, but I really want to do it. Emes. Look what he says. Yesh biyadu min hayayim hazeh schar al kol ha-mitzvahs. From that time on, from that day on, he has schar on every single mitzvah. Al asher shama aznai midivrei Torah v'tavanen. The ones, the mitzvahs side, the mitzvahs that you know about, can you understand? V'al advar asher lagalu aznai aleim adenu. You hear this? Even mitzvahs you don't know about, you get schar right away. You're makabel on yourself. I want to be makabel kol ha-Torah kol. And he says, you have to do it. Don't think it's just, scot-free. There's a good trick before Rosh Hashanah to say, I really want to do all the mitzvahs, boom, got Taryag under my belt, right? It doesn't work like that. You have to actually start doing it. But, however, a person, from the moment that he's mekabel on himself, I want to be mekayim the Torah. I want to do the mitzvahs. Rabbi Yonah says you have the schar from that moment of all the mitzvahs in the Torah. Inside the ones that you know about, inside the ones you don't know about. You get the schar. And he says, skip a couple lines, that's how you have a person whose deeds are more than his knowledge. I don't know mitzvah 600, but because I was mekabel on myself to do the mitzvahs, I get the schar, ki I did all those mitzvahs. So it comes out, I can have that my actions, the schar for them, is more than my knowledge. How does that happen? If I am mekabel on myself, that I want to actually do the mitzvahs, do all the mitzvahs and learn all the Torah. He says, this is what happened when Klal Yisrael said, Nasa, we will do, and then we will hear. How are you able to do if you don't know? Right? Big question. Nasa you're going to do, but you don't know what to do. But they looked at it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu looked at it at that point when they said Nasa v'nishma, they got the schar ki'ilu, they did everything. Because they were willing to do it before they even heard. We want to do it. It's an emes Kabbalah. We really want to. So that's what we have to do. We have to make an emes Kabbalah. Now, how practically does a person make an emes Kabbalah? Does he show HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm serious about this? This is not just something I'm saying because I heard a good shir, and I know a good trick to get all Taryag mitzvahs. I know a good trick to get, on the plus column. So I heard something from, one of our Ibrahim. And he said a person should make for himself what's called the Kabbalah Satara Seder. Which means a person should think, we have a couple of weeks now, think about it. One thing that you want to do for an entire year, from Shavuos to Shavuos. Take however much time you want to do. Pick a time during your day where you have 5, 10, 20, half hour. Something that's reasonable. Something that's it's a reasonable amount of time that you're going to have. And decide, this is going to be my Kabbalah Satara Seder. It's going to start this year Shavuos, and it's going to go till next year Shavuos. Now, I'm going to pick a time where I'm going to be able to do it. And this is going to be chayk v'lo yaver, no matter where I am. On Shabbos, on Yontif, vacation, office, no office, home, kids, no kids, doesn't make a difference. I'm going to learn this, whatever it is. Pick something in English, Hebrew, French, Spanish, whatever you would like to do, and learn it. And do it. What is the point of this? Because you know why? Because you made a Kabbalah. You're serious about your Kabbalah. You get, on top of it, you get the schar for all the other mitzvahs. And you're showing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I am Mekabel your Torah. Imagine that you're going to come next year Shavuos, and you're going to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I was Mekabel your Torah last year. V'haraya, I have a whole year's worth of learning that started last year Shavuos. You gave me the Torah every year. You gave me the Torah this year, and I took it. I took it and I internalized it, and I brought it up through the entire year. I'm going to use it for the entire year. That's a practical way a person can take the Torah. But again, we have a couple weeks now. So we have to prepare ourselves first for that day. A person should think about what he wants to learn. But a person should also work on Tikkun Amidus. We have Pirkei Avos. It's a great limud. The Maral says 2 reasons why we learn Pirkei Avos in this time. And one of the reasons is because Shabbos afternoon is very long. And even if you're going to be ma'ayin in Pirkei Avos, you won't miss out on Shalosh Shudas. Don't worry, we're not worried. And the winter's a little bit too short. We're worried you might go a little bit too much into it and miss out. He says it, I'm honest. And you might miss out, but we're not worried that you'll miss out. We have long afternoons, and Baruch Hashem, we have long days. Everybody should use out the time now properly to prepare themselves to be fit. You can only be, remember, got to push the crown in, got to make the space, right? If you don't have the space, what are you going to be able to receive? And when we get to Shavuos, we get to Kabbalah Satara, and we take it with us for the rest of the year, we'll be Zaychet to an Emes Kabbalah Satara, and we should all be Zaychet to that Kabbalah Satara.